What I'm mostly going to do is take you through my actual conversations with ChatGPT, not all of which are about programming. And I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I use that maybe you don't know about. Some of these are pretty obvious. Some of these are actually based on the latest research on AI. And so I hope you find this interesting. And so some things are going to be really simple that are obvious, and some things that maybe a little less obvious. And I want to show you that GPT is quite useful, not just for solving simple lead code style problems or really easy problems, but for all kinds of situations that are more advanced or things that are really tedious to do by hand that it can automate for you. So this is my actual GPT instance, and I'm going to show you. I'll start by a simple scenario where I wrote some code with GPT. And so the task I asked it is just to write a script, to remove deleted files from Apple Music and macOS. And as I do this, I'll highlight some of the things I'm doing to be more productive with it. The first, I wrote the script, right? I said, make a Apple script, and it figured out that Apple script should be the language to do it in. Make a script that will remove deleted tracks from Apple Music. And then I said, can you improve this script? So I always do this because GPT does not know what it's going to generate until it generates it. It always generates the next, it's a word prediction model. So it generates a word at a time, but it has no ability to retrospect. So once it wrote something, it can't take it back. So you can use it to do a first draft, but if you ask it to improve something without any other feedback, it can almost always make it better because now it can retrospect. Because normally it's just predicting next word. It has no ability to refactor what it already generated. So that's sure, I'll make these improvements. So here's a better version. And then I said, make this change. So fine, I make this change. Then I ran it and I got an error. So a lot of people noticed that any non-trivial code usually doesn't work the first time. And you just feed the error directly into it and it'll fix it. So it did it. Some additional requirements. Fine, I made those changes. Then I did another script. And if you're on the same theme, I'll usually write a series of scripts in the same session because it's using the context of the previous conversation to write the new ones. So now it knows that I like to get totals when I have a job. So it will do. It knows that I like to get a feedback message at the end. Right. So I asked for improvements. And then I said this, code review this for bugs and fix them. So most people don't most people just run the script directly. I always ask GPT to do the code review, to run it virtually and fix the bugs. So I don't have to do this myself. And it's pretty good at this. Again, it has no ability to review what it already wrote. It only predicts the next word. So just ask it to do code review on its own and fix the bugs. And here it's got a little stupid. It forgot that I'm actually referring to the previous script. So I have to paste it back. Normally it knows that I want it to code review the existing script. Okay, so I found some issues. I found a bug. So I didn't run the script. I just found the bug on its own and fixed it. And good, it's done and it worked, and I've been using this for a couple of weeks. So this is a typical session. Typically, anything non-trivial, it takes 10 to 20 iterations to write a single class. So that should be your expectation. So that's just an idea, if you haven't done it, what it's like to write code with GPT. It's a partner. It's not able at this point to write things entirely on its own. That should be your expectation. All right, so mostly I'm going to go to this document. And of course, when I was starting with this, I asked it to create an outline of a talk named GPT for Programmers. And of course, I will give you an outline of what you should cover. But it's not very good at that kind of thing. So let's just go to this document. Where's my window again? Sorry, I lost my video. my call window. Oops, 1 second. There it is. So start with some fundamentals. Whenever you write a prompt for GPT, it should have this format: instruction, context, input, output. So you can see the example here: instruction, write a poem; context that describes more information about the instruction in a style of a Shakespearean sonnet; input data, right? So this is the thing that once you have the instruction context and output, you can vary the input about NFTs, and then output indicator, what I want the output format to be. So this is not really necessary here, but it's just an example. So here, write a poem about NFTs in the style of a sonnet, and so it gave me a poem. So you typically want your prompts to be in this format. So a lot of people just start with only have the instruction, and so they get suboptimal results because they don't have these other elements. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go into examples, and let me get my other notes here out. And I'm going to explain the things that I'm doing here as I go through them. So here I'm asking it to create a table for planting these plants. And I say, I want a table with these columns, and so outputs a table. And then I say, I want reminders for this from a Google Sheet. So it's very good at knowing what technologies are appropriate for this, for some activity. So it says, do this with a Google App script, and then here's the script. And I said, based on this data, actually update my script to actually use this table that I generated. And so it did that. It updated script to actually use this planting schedule. And it worked. I went to Google Apps Script, and I pasted that and generated a calendar for me of when to plant vegetables. Let's see if it'll log me into the right account, my projects. Yeah, there it is. Right, so it made this script for me, and I pasted the CSV of my actual gardening schedule, and so it generated reminders to my calendar. So that's a simple example of using it for programming. One thing that's also useful is generating data. Sorry, 1 second. Let me exit out of this. I think okay. Sorry, 1 second. It's good for generating data for testing. So I said here, generate customers with these properties as a table, right? So you need to specify the data that you want and the output format. And so it did that. And I said, I want this as a CSV instead. Find CSV, and now I can use this in my testing tool. All right, so these are the basic examples. Let's talk about some advanced techniques based on research. This first one is called tree of thought prompting. So the idea here is that you have different perspectives that you want to capture in your analysis. Sorry, 1 second. All right. And you want it to use the best perspective. So here I said, imagine 3 experts answering this question. Each one will write down their thoughts and share it with the group, and keep the best responses. All right, so the question was, if you guys have questions, please just interrupt me, because I can't see the chat window. So just please interrupt me for questions. This is not like super well planned out. The question was, why do image generators fail to render more than 4 of something? And so I didn't share you the whole discussion, but it said expert 1 says this, expert 2 says this, expert 3 says this, and then it picked the best response. And so I got a pretty good answer for a very hard question. Why do image generators have trouble with correctly getting number of fingers or number of objects right? So if you have complex questions, have GPT generate a series of experts. And it's actually going to collect several viewpoints and then be able to have those viewpoints compete with each other. So this is a little more advanced trick. Let's do something else. Retrieval augmented generation. So this just means GPT knows some things, but it doesn't know everything. It doesn't have data after 2021, and it doesn't really know how to effectively pull that data out of its knowledge base. So here I said, compare Grafana and Metabase, make a table. So this was during a meeting. I wanted to know which one I should recommend. And I knew that I could ask GPT directly to compare them, but I used the web browsing mode because I wanted to do live research, because I wanted the latest data. And so it augmented its generation by retrieving data from the web and gave me a recommendation. All right, how about tool use? How long will it take to swim from LA to Singapore? So it can use Wolfram Alpha. And so, yeah, it can't do math very well on its own. So it's able to pull in the tools to do that. So this is a very trivial example. We just look at a more advanced example here on Twitter. So this guy just pasted in a CSV database of movies by release year and such, and had GPT code interpreter generate these reports. So GPT can generate PDFs and images and HTML files. So it can use so it actually writes Python code on the fly to use any kind of tools available in Python, and it's quite good at this. All right, here's another technique called meta prompting. So oftentimes, and I'll actually do more of these later. Oftentimes, you don't know what kind of prompts to write for GPT to be most effective for your goal. So just ask it, what prompts should I write? And it will give you prompts. So this one was, make a list of the 10 coolest prompts for programmers to use, right? So I always say, here's what's the format that I mentioned? Instruction, context, input, output, right? So instruction is write a series of prompts for programmers to use. Output format is 10, and then here's some context. And so it gave me pretty good feedback for how to use GPT to improve your programming. And some of those things are going to be, just to mention, is writing code from pseudocode. It's very good at debugging code. If you have errors, you can just paste the code and ask, why am I getting an error? Doing code review, and any kind of complex issue, it's able to help you with that. Let's keep going. Yeah, so this is an interesting example. People know that GPT can generate simple things pretty easily, but what if you want to generate a pretty large code base, like an NFT marketplace, which has all kinds of components? So this is what I did. I said, I want to code an NFT marketplace with a Rust Postgres backend and a React frontend. And then I said, okay, so first I'll list the goal, then I give some context. The goal is NFT marketplace, context, Rust and React. That's the specifications. First list the components, and then write a series of prompts, output, right? So you need as much detail as possible. Input, context, output format. So it said, yeah, sure, here are the high-level components. Blockchain nodes, smart contract. Most people would stop here because it doesn't actually write the code for you. How do you go with this large project to actually code? Oh, all right. So you have this large project. Did he get in? Hey, Craig. All right, I assume you got in. Large project, and you want to actually have detailed code level instructions. So first I have it write the large components, but then I say, well, now write the prompts for this component. And I said, write the component for the backend. And it said, here's the components for the backend. So I picked the first one. I said, now write the prompts for the user profile. So it's not writing code, it's writing prompts to write the code. So this is not perfect. I did this in like 2 minutes. But the point is, this whole project may have tens of thousands of lines of code, and I can generate all the code. I just need to break down, start with generating high-level architecture, and then low-level, medium level, low-level architecture. Finally, I have it write prompts um, to write the code. And then I say, write the code to do this, and actually writes these things. So this whole project may have tens of thousands of lines of code. Each GPT response currently is only good for like 50 lines of code. Or you just break it down into components, and you can write quite complex applications, as I'll show you, by doing this destructuring method. Right. So what did I call this? Automatic prompt engineer. I had very little guidance here for how to write prompts. If I were actually doing this, I would write one page just telling GPT how to write prompts for itself so that it creates code that I like. Yeah, just more examples. I want you to provide a random prompt for an AI image generator. Here are 3 examples of good prompts. So what I'm doing here is called few-shot prompting. So in AI, well, I lost my notes. Where are my notes? There's zero-shot and few-shot prompting. So zero-shot prompting means I tell it what to do without any examples, like write a Shakespearean sonnet about NFTs. But few-shot prompting is when I give examples, and now I wanted to do more instances based on these examples. Whenever you can do this, it gives you much higher quality results because now it knows the format that you're asking for, and so it'll give you better quality results. And so based on this, it's generated a example prompt for a mid-journey. So what does this look like? It's this, and I click random image, and hopefully it'll be a good quality image. Come on. There it is. There's a full screen thing, is still buggy. So I made this image. So what it did is called ChatGPT with few-shot prompting. It said, here are 3 examples of a prompt. Now make a new random prompt. And the prompt is an image metadata, but we can look here. Here's the prompt. A whimsical surreal landscape featuring a purple and green sky, floating islands, etc., giant teapot pouring, whatever. So Stable Diffusion, which is generating this image by itself, cannot do this high quality images. I mean, it can do high quality, it's not this creative. So I'm using few-shot prompting with GPT to then feed that prompt into Stable Diffusion and generate this image. Okay. Please ask questions, because otherwise I have no idea that you guys are still on here. So feel free to interrupt. This is not structured at all. Okay, moving on. Here's an example using GPT for language translation. So I actually went on an online forum because I wanted to know how to write this tool, and I found instructions in JavaScript, but I want to do this in C#. So I copied and pasted the whole page. This was a forum post, which has a written description, right? How to do this. Not even real code. I mean, it has code snippets. But I had to read these instructions, and I said, take this instructions for JavaScript and then write it in C#. And so it did. And this is the tool that I made, that I just used. Now, it took a few iterations, but basically it read a written description, right, with pseudocode, made C# code, and then I made this website. I did this website the same way I showed you earlier, with destructuring from high level to low level, because there's calling the Stable Diffusion API, there's the Bootstrap formatting, there's calling the OpenAI ChatGPT API, all kinds of things here. each one of them is a separate call, and I generate them one at a time. So this website, let's do another one. Pretty Apple under image is 100% GPT written. And it took about 20 prompts, one for each component. Yeah, right. Pretty apples. Okay, so that I know you guys they're still here. Somebody give me a random prompt to put in here. One, just anything for it to generate. Sorry, what was that? Come on, guys. Some kind of random image thing.
Tiger on moon.
There it is. Surfing on Mars. There it is. Surf. It does not look like Mars. All right, so there's 3 APIs involved here. I'm sorry, two API. Yeah, but it's still not Mars. It's not very good at this. There's OpenAI ChatGPT and there's Stable Diffusion, and so I'm using one AI to pass images to the other. That sucks. All right, moving on. Using tools. I'm kind of like using different techniques that all mixed together. Extract the Stable Diffusion metadata from the header of this image. So I upload an image to GPT, and it extracts the metadata. So it does this in Python. It writes Python code in the fly to do whatever it needs to do. So I've expanded this here just to show you. It's able to use tools. And any Python library that it knows about, it's able to call in and then use that to operate on your file. Another example, optimizing things. How can I make this FM video transcoding faster in this line of code? I pasted in the code and explained the parameters, right? I don't know if it's that big, but it explained the parameters, and it said it gave me a pull request to optimize this transcoding. All right, another example, write a macOS shell script to go into a certain path recursively and blah, 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 generated code. So I don't know shell scripts, I don't know Apple scripts, I don't know how to convert from JavaScript to C#. And maybe not at some level I do, but it knows all these languages. And it picks the best language for the application. Oh, this is cool. So I said, update this README file. So this is some of the things I write with GPT, and it has a README file, which explains what these tools do. This README is 100% generated by GPT. It knows what the format of YouTube, sorry, not YouTube, GitHub READMEs is, and it generated it. But here's the cool thing. I did not tell it what the scripts do. I just said, add info about these scripts. So for 2 of them, I explained what they do, but for these other ones, I did not explain what they do. But it inferred the context, right, few-shot prompting from these 2 and from the file names. And it explained what they do. And it was correct. So for all of these scripts, well, not for all of them. For 2 of them, I did say this is what they do. But for these other ones, I did not say what the scripts do. It had 2 data points. It had the description of what the other scripts do. It had the few-shot prompting where I wrote descriptions for some of the scripts. But the other thing is that I wrote this README file after I wrote this script. So this description, it knew what it does because I had it write this script in the same session. So you can use a session, right, to write the script and then write the README for it. And so it wrote descriptions of what these scripts do. And then because it knows the file names and SH, it knew like these other pretty trivial, but still installation usage instructions. So again, this is written in Mac OS shell scripts, which I don't know. And it took about 10 to 20 times iterations, just feeding errors back into it or adding additional requirements to get these perfectly working. And it's great to write, comments so it knows, so I know what it's doing. The code as well. If you ever have undocumented code, you just tell it add comments and it'll figure out what the code is doing. Something else I had to do is I said, create a chart of the year each of the songs in Apple Music was released. Right, so I have all my MP3s here, and I want to know what year they're all made. And so GPT can't do this, but actually it did not do this itself. I said, explain to me how to do this. So first it made a script that exported to CSV from Apple Music, right? This is an Apple script. And then it told me, now use Excel to create a pivot table and do this in Excel. So GPT could have done this itself, but I wanted this in Excel so I could manipulate it easier and do other analysis of my music. So so I'm using GPT to write one script, and then it told me the best tool to do it, which is an Excel pivot table. Okay, let's keep going. This is kind of cool. Here's an ls command on macOS. So I had like 300 files in my desktop folder, and I wanted to organize them. Now, GPT does not have access to my macOS directly. And there are projects that will give it access to your computer, but that's not what I want to. I wanted to actually write the commands to organize my files. So I fed in just a list of hundreds of files. And I said, fine, here's instructions to organize your files. It read the file names, and then it gave me the commands to write the directories and to move the files to those directories. Let's keep going. So like some of these things, if you've been working with me, you notice like the things that generate like are the output of this. I wrote this kind of rough draft for this product build, and then I said convert this to an Amazon one pager because I like that format, and so it did. It formatted, marked down, it created a one pager report. Keep going. Question: is the Aptos blockchain EVM compatible? I knew that I needed to do a web search for this because it's too new. I wanted current data on this, and so it did web search. So this is tool use, right? It uses tools and it gives me the answer. And you need to know when you want GPT to use tools because those are different modes. If I go to GPT, new chat, so I can choose the old 3.5 mode or in GPT-4, the browsing mode, the code interpreter, or the plugins, which I mostly use Wolfram Alpha, or is just the default, no tools. So if you want one of these tools at this time, you need to know which tools you want to have access to. All right, where's my call window? Okay, let's keep going. It's really good for like I have the script for optimizing PNG files on my web server. I want to know how to do this with JPEG. I said write the equivalent of this for JPEG, and it knows that instead of opti PNG, I want to use JPEG optim. How about this? This is Solidity smart contract bytecode. Analyze it. Actually, it's not Solidity bytecode. It's actually Python-based pseudocode that I decompiled Solidity smart contract, and I just uploaded that decompiled file, which I could never interpret a million years on my own. It's like here's the decompile. This is still not super useful. I went through several more iterations until I was able to effectively decompile and get meaningful answers out of the smart contract bytecode. But this is kind of superhuman level abilities, which doesn't mean like AGI, but some things GPT does just saves you time, and some things you could never do on your own. And taking 10,000 line bytecode is something that would take a team a long time, but it's able to take that whole file and summarize it and give you analysis immediately in seconds. Again, important to know when you need to use tools with GPT. Yeah, I'm using the paid version. I saw your question. So this is GPT Pro, which is $20 a month. So if you don't have the Pro version, you're limited to GPT 3.5, which does not have access to these tools. Probably it will soon. Right? It's been in beta for a while. Probably they will add it soon. Sorry, let me get a drink. All right. I need to know when you wanted to use tools. So I knew that Python, I think Python 3.11 is new. It's not in its knowledge base. So I told it to do a web search. So I did a web search and then that gave me a report. Right. So for new frameworks, technologies, news, etc., you need to know to tell it to do a web search. Well, this is fun. I sell product marketplace and I have it rewrite my product description so it's more interesting. Okay, how about this? It's the fun one. I needed a code name, so I had to generate a list of code names. All right, how about this? Tab, just to show you this first. What's this? It's a 3D depth map of my selfie. So how do you generate this with GPT? You say, you upload a file, and then you say, analyze RGB pixels, create a downloadable 3D surface map, blah, blah, blah. So you can do this for any kind of file processing you want to do. You can do data science, you can do image processing, you can generate videos. There are pretty strict file limits, but it will do it. Sorry, 1 second. But it will generate files for you, and then proceed without further instruction. Well, why did I do this? Because GPT-4 has a limit of 25 queries per hour. And if you don't do this, it's going to ask a bunch of clarifications. So if I want, oftentimes when I cut it short and just get to the point, so I will say something like, do this now, proceed without further instructions. I think in the movie Blade Runner 2045 or whatever the name, but like in the conversation with the replicants, they say they have this command, do it now. So they give a series of instructions to the replicant, like go choke this person, and then he says, do it now. So same thing with GPT, do it now, otherwise it's going to ask for more clarification because it really wants to know what you really want. But if you do that, then you run out of the quota. Okay, how about this? How to do tool use, right? You need to know when you want to look up real-time data. What's inflation rate? I know this is current data. I used the web version. I looked it up. What currency does it use? How's the adoption of Bitcoin Lebanon going? It will tell you. I was deciding which printer to buy. So I said, compare these two printers. I knew that this is going to be sparse in its data set. So I wanted to augment its data with web data. So it browses the web, generates a table. It's important here to generate a table because otherwise it's going to give you some BS essay. You don't want an essay, you want just the line-by-line comparison. But this example is how to have it be an editor for you. So I write about science. So I say, you are this role. And it's important to say you are this role because otherwise, if you ask it to write about science, it's going to give you like the fifth grader level analysis. It's going to give you like, if you ask about AI, very surface level. So I will actually say things like you are Stephen Hawking or you are the preeminent, because then I'm going to get deep level analysis of my essay. And all I want to do is edit the spelling and grammar and add clarifications. But I want to set the context so that it does it at the proper level. Because the main thing, the main reason for this is I want to correct the terminology, so I sound smarter. And if you don't, at this line, do not remove details, it will simplify things. Because more complex concepts it does not understand, it will just strip them out. But here it will retain all the detail. It just fixes my terminology and fixes spelling and grammar. So even for like very surface level, if I want very surface level editing, I will say this: edit for spelling and grammar, do not remove details. And then it won't rewrite the whole thing. Oftentimes I will do a sample of my writing style so that it does not change to its default very academic writing style. So that's an example of few-shot prompting. or actually one-shot prompting, where I give an example. Here's my writing style. Here's my programming style. Here's some existing data points. Imitate this data point. Okay, so I had a friend who lives in China. His infant was in the ICU, and he needed to communicate to the doctor his wishes. And so I said, "This is the question my friend had for the doctor." And I said, "Answer in Chinese." And so he took the. It's very good at translating. It's as good as Google Translate, because actually now they both use transformers. So I said, "Do this in Chinese," and he was able to come to the doctor in the Chinese hospital with an informed opinion and understand the correct terminology to use with the doctor. Okay, how about this? Setting the audience is important. The output format. I said here, edit this to be more informal, target is LinkedIn. So I write in a kind of academic style. I made this less academic. And I said, now edit the same to fit in a tweet. And it edited to fit in one tweet because it knows what the Twitter rate limits Twitter quota is, and it knows to do more emojis. Again, I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the board, but how about fixing errors? It's very good. You just paste in a huge stack trace, and it will figure out in the stack trace what is actually meaningful, how to fix that error. So it said, oh, you have issues with your CUDA library in Linux. Yeah, here's the actual commands you run. Oftentimes what I will do is I'll say, here's an error having my computer, and I don't want to troubleshoot. I'll just say, list as many terminal commands to fix this as possible. Because I don't want to go into settings and preferences and go and tweak things. Just say, give me 20 terminal commands. Yeah, you have to read them, but it will actually just give you the command, hopefully to fix the issue without you having to do it manually. Or write the Apple script to fix this issue. Or how about using it for code translation? Okay, I'm going to give you Python snippets. So, a very important point. GPT has limited context, and we're kind of running out of time. So let me try to get to this point. It has a very limited context window, meaning it has very limited working memory. So it can only think one thought at a time. So don't feed it one thought at a time. If you have large tasks, break them down. So here I have a large code base. I'm going to translate from Python to C#. So I say I'm going to feed you snippets one at a time. I'm setting the context. I said use NuGet project to simplify code whenever possible. So I'm telling it the goal, the context, the output format. And I give it the overall project goal to keep in mind to hopefully bridge this. I said, fine, I'm ready. And then I feed one Python snippet at a time and generates code. Okay, that's kind of the sharing. Let me just kind of remind you of some things. Everything I did has been GPT-4, which is paid. GPT 3.5 is like 20 IQ points dumber. So for $20 a month, it's definitely worth it. But yeah, just keep that in mind. If you do the same thing at 3.5, it's going to be a little lower quality. Some things only GPT-4 can do because it just requires that much intelligence. Loss of context. GPT has a context window. I think in GPT-3, it's like 2048 tokens. A token is basically like a word root. So think of it as a word. So like this would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tokens, but some words are actually multiple tokens. Like I don't know, but anyway. So if you exceed the token window, it will forget what I previously said. So in GPT-4, the token window is 8,000 characters. So if you want to process books, it's going to be larger than 8,000 characters. You cannot summarize a book unless you use a third-party tool. You can't summarize a book if you do GPT with Code Interpreter or any large text, right? So with GPT Code Interpreter, you say you upload the PDF or the TXT file, and you say summarize this. And then it will use tools and break down the task and summarize it. But just GPT-4 on itself, without tools, has a context window of 8,000 characters, it's going to forget anything before that. So there's some hacks around this. One is if you're generating a large code file, you say continue, and it will keep generating that. But something else you can do is, let's say this is my project, NFT marketplace. And by the time I'm writing code here, I already forgot what the architecture was. So now I have the user profile component, but it already forgot what the architecture was that I wrote here. So I go back to the previous step and I edit it. Where's the edit button? This is missing it. Right, you you edit it. Where's the edit button? Go back here. I think edit button goes away after a while. Maybe because it's a previous GPT version. Why doesn't that work? Right, so you can edit previous responses. I think it times out after a while, the edit button. I don't know why. But the point is you can do this if, let's say, you're writing a very large code base and you start with architecture and you go back to the code file, but then it already forgot the architecture because the code's, you have a bunch of code. You go back to the previous step and there's usually an edit button here. I think it may be timed out after a while. And so you go back and then you generate again. So you see it's a hierarchy. So you can go back a few levels up, drill down again, and then just scroll up again and generate the file again. So you would not edit this file. This is architecture. You would go to the next step. Oh, here it is. That's weird. No, edit. Oh, that's the response. I'm sorry, I'm dumb. That's the response, right? So here you would go back and edit to have the next component. And so this is a way of getting around the context window of GPT because it already forgot what you wrote earlier. It's rewriting is very useful. So if you ask a question, you get a bad response, don't ask it again. Just edit your question, have it rewrite the answer. Or if you can give it feedback, but by rewriting, you're avoiding increasing the context window. That's why you do that. Because if you say, here's the programming task, write this code file, and you say, oh, that's not good, do it again. Maybe you already forgot the original instruction. But if you just edit the question, then you don't generate more context window and they can remember everything. And importantly, one goal at a time, right? So one class at a time. If you're asked to do too much, the quality goes down. It's going to forget everything you asked for. So have one goal at a time. Remember to generate, to specify the output format. You can do lists, you can do files, images, tables, markdown. Obviously code too. You can tell it which the output format should be. Okay, just something it's good at to keep in mind. If you have unknown obfuscated code, it will tell you what it does. You can feed it totally minified JavaScript code that's intentionally obfuscated. It will basically de-obfuscate, structure it, and document it. I've actually done this. It's good at writing. If you write pseudocode in English, you can tell it to write the code in any language. So don't give it a goal if you can write pseudocode. That's much more effective. That's closer to like few step prompting. Whereas a goal, it's hard to specify for any non-trivial code how to do it. Virtual debugging, tell it run this code. You don't use the word run. Say simulate running this code, and tell me what the output is, and it will actually, just like you would in your head, it will tell you what the output of that code would be. It's great for writing test cases, unit cases, generating test data, writing unit tests, because that kind of thing doesn't require a lot of intelligence. It's easy to generate. And any kind of common functionality, emails, data entry, entering to Excel, it's very good at because it's been done a million times. Don't write that yourself. There's this website, promptingguide.ai. It has all these techniques that I talked about today. It's quite useful. So definitely, if you want to go deep into this, it's quite useful. All right, that's all I have. Any questions?
At the top
No
of,
questions today?
I do.
Yeah.
At the top of your GPT, you've got more options than me. So when I look at the top of my Chat GPT, I just got 3.5 and GPT-4, and then you have other stuff there if you want to. Yeah, like you got Alpha, and then GPT Mobile. Also, like I don't have Code Interpreter under my GPT-4, so maybe you could talk a little bit about how you get these set up.
I've been using GPT, ChatGPT since it came out, and I also use their API. Yeah, I mentioned the desktop, and I think based on usage, it invites me to these other products. So the best I can tell you is the more you use it, the more OpenAI will invite you to get into their alphas and betas. Yeah, sorry I cannot give you better
That's okay.
guidance here.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
This is an app called ChatGPT for desktop. What it does is have hundreds of prompts, which are not working right now. I don't actually use that prompt feature, but it does. Maybe it's because. Come on. No prompts. Sync prompts. You can do your own custom prompt library. Oh, they went away. Come on. Yeah, sync it. There it is. I lost it somehow. Let me show you this. Linux terminal. There it is. So now it's going to simulate a Linux terminal. Anyway, sorry, just as an aside. This app, ChatGPT Desktop, has hundreds of prompts, so you don't have to know how about a poet. They will tell you the best way to structure the prompt. There's a GitHub repo where thousands of people collaborate to create a library of hundreds of like English. And you can see there's how many are there? 163 of them. So this is called ChatGPT. How do you get to the website? ChatGPT app. This is totally unofficial, right? Get there it is. I'll paste it in the chat for you guys. Yeah, there it is. Okay, more questions? No more questions. Last chance, guys. All right, I'll call it a day. Thanks for attending, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Cheers.